So the first question, you're asking about that pause, that opportunity when you get triggered to make a skillful choice versus do the old self-destructive, self-sabotaging, more impulsive, less healthy, less skillful things, right? So a few things are going on here, especially if you're new to DBT. One is that in your brain, your neural pathways have already been paved from years and years of repetition of responding the way you have been responding. So if your typical reaction to someone saying something that feels hurtful to you is to lash out or to leave the scene or to do something else, that whatever behavior you want to insert in there that's personal for you, that is what you are wired to do now because you've done it over and over and over again. So the quickest response that your brain has is to go from A to B. From this trigger means I do this. So it just happens pretty quickly and almost seems as if there is no pause. With DBT skills, as you begin to learn them and practice them, there's going to be quite often this resistance, quite often this difficulty with accessing the skills and also difficulty with actually practicing them because it can feel just counterintuitive, it can feel inauthentic in a way, and you have to push yourself through. You have to have this leap of faith and this trust in the process that you're going to do this skill and that the next time you go to do it, it's going to be easier because you've done it once, and the next time it's going to be even easier because you've done it twice. And eventually what happens, and what has happened for me and many of the senior students in this group and other people who have done DBT for a long time, those DBT skills become the more prominent reaction that your brain goes to when you get that trigger. So you're starting to think more and practice more in the skills. It becomes an organic process of that being the more natural way of responding. Let's see what you have here. Oh, the other thing is, actually, let me just go through what you said. So the theory and skills we're learning are partly in preparation for acting during that space, and everything turns around in that moment. So you're saying like when you get triggered. Okay, so it's all fine and well for us to talk about these things and for you to study them when you're in your logical, rational mind. And you are very logical and rational and insightful and intelligent, I can tell from the communication through your posts and the homework threads and questions. It's easy to intellectually get it when you're in that state of mind. When you get triggered, something else happens, right? When we get triggered to the point where our nervous system is activated, so something has happened, an intense emotion is coming on, we're in fight, flight, or freeze. The part of our brain that rationalizes and reasons and the intellectual part goes bye-bye. It goes out the door temporarily. And the area in the back of your brain, your amygdala, your limbic system, sometimes called the reptilian brain, this is the part of the brain that does not have time for logic, that does not have time to process, to reason, to rationalize, think, which skill should I use? This is the part that's panicking and wanting to survive at all costs. And there's not this slowdown, there's this reaction of fight, flight, or freeze. So what I have found helpful, and I see some other students have begun to comment as well, is be on the lookout for when you notice you become triggered. Whatever that sign might be on the lookout for when you're in fight, flight, or freeze. And that's when you stop. That's when you take a moment. That's where you excuse yourself. That's where you step back. Initially, it may be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to access the rational mind, to sort through skills and decide which one to pick. So one thing that I have done is I've actually created a binder years ago, and I had a copy in my car as well. So when I became aware of the fact that I was triggered, the fact that my nervous system felt hijacked, whatever it was, that I just knew I was getting into that space where I would get in trouble with unskillful behavior, I would grab that book and I would start to look at it, start to use skills that I could use immediately whether it be soothing myself through my senses, whether it be just sitting there and looking through the book, just looking at the words, to re-engage that part of the brain that can actually be reasonable and rational. Another thing you can do if the binder is too overwhelming or seems too overwhelming is you can make yourself some little cards that you carry around with you. And one stack that I would recommend would be a stack that engages reasonable, rational mind. And that could be, if you want to get really fancy with it, you get a stack of cards and then a big Ziploc bag. And in that bag, you could have like crossword puzzles, mind teasers, or you can just have these little cards where you say, okay, name 5 countries in Africa, or count down from 917 by 12, or things of that nature that are going to get you thinking, going into your rational, logical, prefrontal cortex, getting up in here again. So one stack of cards for engaging that part of the brain again, because it's gone. It's taking a siesta while your brain is making sure that you're okay and you're safe. I'd have another stack that are for being effective, and so this would be like each card has a different goal that you have for yourself, and then it says, is what I'm about to say or do effective for this goal? So like when you're not able to really get it to the forefront of your mind, literally in those moments, you can use these little cue cards to help jolt you back in or ease you back in, however you want to look at it. And then you might want to have some cards for self-soothing, like what can I do right now to soothe my nervous system? So these would be things that you can do through each of your 5 senses. So things that you could look at that would bring you more contentment, calmness, peace, things you could listen to, things you could taste, things you could smell, things you could touch. Because again, at that moment when your nervous system is activated, the ability to access that information might be very limited, if not impossible. But having the cue cards with you allows you to access that information again. So let me just make sure I've covered what you've asked. Are there techniques to help us remember the choices we have before we are overwhelmed? I hope that this will be helpful, what I've just described. And also there's a skill in DBT called coping ahead. So if you know in advance that you're going into a situation that is going to be potentially triggering, you can actually go through the process of writing out, imagining yourself being successful in that situation, what that would look like, and how you would be responding, and how you would be acting. And in DBT, we read that script over and over and over again until it feels like second nature, so that when you step into that situation, it no longer feels like this foreign thing that you're dealing with for the first time. You've already done some neuroplasticity pre-work, if you will. And can the pause be extended to give us more time to act before thoughts, feelings, and sensations cascade? Can the pause be extended? Well, how do I answer that? So the pause is the opportunity that you have between noticing you're triggered and taking any type of action, of doing something with that, right? So here's the pause in here. So that's up to you. You will have this opportunity once you become aware that you have been triggered, your nervous system has been activated, to then go and do one of the things that I have described, if any of them appeal to you. And you get to choose when you come back to the situation to deal with it again, whether it's a conversation or something that you have to deal with another person, or a task that you need to complete. And the idea is to get your nervous system as relaxed and back down to baseline as possible before re-entering that situation, because that gives you the best odds of being able to cope and deal effectively and skillfully. So I hope this was helpful for you. Please do let me know. Great questions, especially for those starting out in DBT like yourself, and I hope this was helpful. Talk to you soon.